Chapter 1. Hypocritical Mask. The sun was as bright as ever, but it could not warm the coldness in my heart. Derek, the man I once loved deeply, was now using his seemingly gentle actions to cover up the hideousness deep in his heart. "Dear, dry your hair so you won't catch a cold." Derek's voice came from behind, low and gentle, and the tone was like a thoughtful husband caring for his wife. His fingers gently brushed the ends of my hair, and his movements were so gentle that it seemed as if I was a fragile treasure. But I knew that this gentleness was just a mask he carefully disguised, and behind it was endless control and violence. I lowered my eyelids, trying not to let the disgust in my eyes leak out. I caught a glimpse of his mobile phone on the bedside table, which was the tool he used to control my every move. He would check my call records, text messages, and even locate my location. As long as I deviated from the track he set, I would be waiting for a storm of anger. "Thank you," I responded softly, with a deliberately disguised weakness in my voice. In order to get revenge, I must continue to play the role of this amnesiac, weak wife and let him relax his vigilance. While he turned around to put the towel in the bathroom, I quickly lifted the mattress and saw the secret compartment. The photos and diary fragments hidden inside are the key evidence for my revenge. After he lost control and attacked last week, I secretly took pictures of the shocking bruises on his body while he was sleeping. Those purple marks are the ironclad evidence of his violence. There are also the fragments torn from his diary, on which the words "she must belong only to me" are written in sloppy and crazy handwriting, and every stroke reveals his twisted possessiveness. Memories came like a tide, and the scene of the car accident that night appeared clearly in front of me again. I curled up in the passenger seat and fear wrapped me tightly. Derek completely lost control because I tried to contact Irene, and his roar echoed in the small car. At the moment when the steering wheel lost control, I saw that what flashed in his eyes was not the fear of danger, but a kind of almost paranoid possessiveness, as if he would never allow me to escape his control even if he died with me. "What are you looking at?" Derek's voice suddenly sounded behind me, my heart suddenly tightened, and my fingertips trembled uncontrollably. I quickly closed the secret compartment and turned around, with a confused and innocent look on my face, which was the expression I had carefully practiced during this period. No, I didn't look at anything, I just felt that this mattress was uncomfortable. I bit my lower lip, lowered my head slightly, pretending to be timid and fearful. This was the familiar and submissive me. A trace of suspicion flashed in his eyes, and his eyes were like a sharp blade, as if he wanted to penetrate my disguise and spy on my true thoughts. However, in the end he still reached out and rubbed my head. The action seemed intimate, but I couldn't feel a trace of warmth. "Let the housekeeper change a new one tomorrow," he said, lowering his head to check his mobile phone, and his eyebrows suddenly frowned. It was probably because of the company's affairs that bothered him. "Sure enough," after a moment he said, "there's something going on at the company, I'll be back in the afternoon." I nodded obediently, with a perfect expression of loss on my face, until I heard the sound of the car door closing at the entrance. I completely relaxed and my tense nerves finally got a little relief. Walking to the window, watching Derek's car disappear at the end of the street, I couldn't wait to take out the spare phone hidden deep in the closet. This was sent by Irene at her risk. It was like the only hope I grabbed in the dark. Turn on the phone. The moment the screen lit up, countless unread messages poured in. Irene sent messages one after another. "Be careful of Derek's recent movements. Marcus is ready." These messages were like a shot of adrenaline in my heart, making me more determined to take revenge. My fingers slid across the screen quickly, deleting messages one by one, and every time I deleted one, it was like erasing a trace of the risk of being discovered. I stood in front of the window, the sun shone on me, but I couldn't feel the slightest warmth. I gently stroked the old wound on the inside of my wrist, which was the mark left by Derek's first attack. Once this scar made me fear and despair, but now it has become the source of my motivation for revenge. I silently swore in my heart that I must make Derek pay a painful price for his actions and let him taste the taste of being controlled and tortured. At this moment the sun is still shining, people come and go on the street, and life seems peaceful and beautiful. But no one knows that under this calm appearance, a storm of revenge is quietly brewing. I am no longer the cowardly woman who is at the mercy of others. I will tear Derek's hypocritical mask with my own hands, make his crimes public, and let him receive the punishment he deserves. I took a deep breath, calmed down my emotions and began to think about the next plan. The road to revenge is full of dangers, but I have no way out and I will never retreat. Chapter 2. Corrupted Love. The sun shines through the mottled leaves and sprinkles on the path of the university campus, where Derek and I first met. At that time he was wearing a light gray sweater, the corners of his clothes were casually tucked into his jeans, and a warm smile hung on the corners of his mouth. He broke into my life just like that. When he handed me the club flyer, his fingertips gently brushed my palm, and my heart trembled slightly, and the gears of fate began to turn. "Classmate, this club is very interesting, you can learn about it." His voice was clear and just the right amount of enthusiasm. At that moment I looked into his bright eyes and seemed to see countless beautiful possibilities in the future. Later we stayed up late to review in the library together. He would hand me a cup of hot coffee when I was sleepy, and the rich aroma instantly dispelled fatigue. On rainy days he would wait for me at the door of the teaching building with an umbrella, and then carefully protected me under the umbrella, but his shoulders were wet by the rain. Even on the day of the proposal he made careful preparations, covering the beach with roses and candlelight. When he knelt on one knee his eyes were full of affection. The words, "I will always protect you," made me believe that I was the happiest person in the world. However, marriage became the beginning of all nightmares. At first it was just some seemingly insignificant things. He began to dislike my gatherings with friends and always found various excuses to keep me at home. "Why don't we watch a movie together today? It's too chaotic outside, you stay at home obediently." Although I felt a little strange, I thought that newlyweds needed more time together, so I didn't care too much. Later he confiscated my mobile phone, saying, "I don't want to be disturbed by irrelevant messages in our world of two." I tried to resist, but what I got in return was his cold eyes and stern scolding. "I do this for your own good, why don't you understand?" Later violence became his way of solving problems. Once, because I forgot to prepare breakfast for him, he instantly flew into a rage and slapped me hard in the face. With a crisp snap, my cheeks were burning with pain and I was stunned by the sudden violence. "You are my wife, you should take good care of me. If you can't even do this, what's the use of you?" His roar echoed in the room. I looked at him in horror. The hideous man in front of me was completely different from the gentle man in my memory. "You are mine and can only belong to me." He grabbed my wrist, his nails almost pinched into my flesh, and every word seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth with a chilling ferocity. "If you dare to resist again, next time it will not only be a slap." Since then such scenes have been staged repeatedly. He has all kinds of reasons for being angry. The food is salty, the clothes are not ironed, the reply is slow, and even if I just glance at the opposite sex passing by, I will be beaten and scolded. From the initial screaming and crying to the numbness and silence later, the double torture of body and mind made me gradually lose the strength and courage to resist, and I could only struggle in this endless darkness. "Aaron." I whispered the name softly, tears blurring my vision. Erin was my best friend in college. No matter what happened to me, she always stood firmly by my side. When I was beaten up, she secretly gave me a band-aid and cried to persuade me to leave Derek. But at that time I was bound by fear and so-called love, and chose silence and endurance again and again. After the car accident, Derek cut off all my contact with the outside world but only missed Erin. Maybe he was too confident or maybe he was negligent for a while, but this became the key breakthrough for my revenge. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Erin. Marcus agreed to cooperate. He hates Derek's business methods. Seeing this message, my hands couldn't help shaking. The long-awaited revenge was finally about to begin. "Go as planned," I replied quickly, with every word carrying the determination to burn my boats. The wind outside the window gently blew up the curtains. In a trance, I seemed to see myself hiding in the closet and crying and sending messages to Irene. "He hit me again, I'm so scared." And now, all the fear and pain I once had will turn into a sharp blade of revenge for the man who ruined my life. In the evening, Derek came back from get-off work with a bouquet of red roses in his hand. "I passed by the flower shop and thought you would like it." He walked in with a seemingly gentle smile on his face, and put the flowers into the vase, with an elegant movement like a considerate husband. I took the red wine glass he handed me and gently stroked the edge of the glass with my fingertips, trying to make my voice sound natural. "Derek, I seem to have remembered something from the past today." Hearing this, he paused in pouring the wine, his Adam's apple rolled quickly, and a hint of imperceptible panic flashed in his eyes. What did you remember? I lowered my eyelashes, hiding the calculation in my eyes. It seems to be something about the university club. There is a boy in a gray sweater. That's me, dear. He immediately interrupted, and although his voice was deliberately relaxed, I still heard the tension in it. Look, the memory is slowly recovering. I raised my eyes and squeezed out a tearful smile at him. It would be great if I could remember everything. Derek reached out to wipe away my tears, but his fingertips were cold, without a trace of warmth. Yes, take your time. When I turned around, I heard his deliberately light sigh, which was a sigh of relief that he thought he was relieved. He thought I was still under his control, but he didn't know that I had already seen his true face and was ready to completely destroy him. Late at night, when Derek was asleep, I carefully took out my spare phone. The dim light of the screen illuminated my face, and the message from Irene kept flashing. It was the internal information of Derek's company. Marcus said that the bidding meeting next week is the key. Looking at this message, I sneered and quickly typed a reply on the screen. Let him get ready. Derek's retribution is coming. The night outside the window was deep and silent, but my heart was extremely hot, and the flame of revenge was burning in my chest. I know that although the darkness before dawn is long, the dawn will eventually come. I will personally pull Derek down from his high position and make him pay the most painful price for what he has done. Chapter 3: Dangerous Alliance. On the day of the bidding, the lobby of the luxury hotel was illuminated by crystal chandeliers as bright as day, and the surroundings were decorated with exquisite flowers. The air was filled with the breath of money and power. Business celebrities from all walks of life were dressed in well-tailored suits and gorgeous dresses, holding champagne glasses, talking and laughing, weighing and calculating interests. I walked into the room with Derek's arm around my shoulder, with a gentle but slightly timid smile on my face. But my heart was like a taut string, with hidden calculations in every step. This is Mr. Anderson, an important partner of our company. Derek introduced me in a low voice, and at the same time squeezed my hand slightly, indicating that I should behave better. I smiled politely and shook hands with him, but my eyes inadvertently swept through the crowd and caught the figure of Marcus Reed not far away. He was tall and straight, wearing a dark gray suit, and the light blue tie added a bit of sharpness and competence to him. He was talking to others, but his eyes looked at me from time to time. While Derek was talking to his partner, I frowned slightly, bit my lower lip, pretended to be confused and uneasy in an unfamiliar environment, and whispered, "Honey, I want to sit in the lounge over there for a while." Although Derek looked unhappy, he nodded and agreed because of the occasion. "Don't run around, come back early." I walked along the soft carpeted corridor to the lounge area, and the footsteps of my high heels were particularly clear in the silence. At the marble corner, Marcus had been waiting for a long time. He put his hands in his pockets. When he saw me coming, he raised his eyebrows slightly and a meaningful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Derek's project loopholes are in the third file. I lowered my voice, turned sideways to block the view of others, and quickly handed him the micro USB flash drive hidden in the bracelet. He misappropriated funds to make false accounts, and the evidence is all in it. Marcus took the USB flash drive, rubbed it lightly with his fingertips, raised his eyebrows and said, "Do you trust me so much?" I sneered and looked him in the eyes firmly. "You want to bring down Derek, I want to destroy him, but we both get what we need. In this matter, our goals are the same, and this is the greatest trust." He looked at me for a moment, a trace of appreciation flashed in his eyes, and suddenly smiled. He said, "Interesting, Derek has such a ruthless character." After that, he carefully put the USB drive into his pocket and stretched out his hand. "Happy cooperation." I shook his hand without hesitation and responded briefly and forcefully, "Happy cooperation." Back in the hall, Derek immediately caught my figure keenly, walked up to me quickly and put his arm around my waist, with a scrutinizing look in his eyes. "Why did you take so long?" I snuggled into his arms and said aggrievedly, "I couldn't find the way back, I was a little panicked." He patted my back, but his eyes passed me and looked at Marcus in the distance, his eyes full of vigilance and hostility. I raised the corners of my mouth quietly in his arms. This vigilance would soon turn into despair that he could not bear. That night, Derek's company system suddenly collapsed without any signs. From the study came his angry roar and the sound of smashing things. Check. Check who did it immediately. It must be that bastard Marcus. I pretended to be frightened by the scene and huddled at the door to eavesdrop. How dare he? He dared to do it on my territory. His roar was mixed with reluctance and panic, but I felt happy. A few days later, Marcus deliberately created an encounter according to the plan. We met accidentally in a quiet cafe in the city center. I pretended to be surprised and nervously knocked over the coffee cup in a hurry. I'm sorry, I apologized in a panic, but Marcus smiled and handed me a tissue. It's okay, it's just a small matter. His voice was gentle, but it was full of hidden meaning. When I calmed down a little, he approached quietly and whispered, "Didn't Derek notice?" I shook my head slightly, looked around vigilantly and said after confirming that no one noticed, "He is in a mess now, the company is in a mess, and he has no energy to take care of me." Marcus leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table and said in a low but powerful voice, "Next, it's time for him to taste the taste of being deserted by his friends and relatives." I understood what he meant. Derek's partners were already dissatisfied with the project crisis. With a little provocation, they would become an important force to overthrow Derek. After returning home, I began to reveal some rumors in front of Derek intentionally or unintentionally. I heard from others today that Mr. Anderson seems to be in contact with other companies. I pretended to mention it casually, and saw Derek's face suddenly gloomy, and I was secretly proud in my heart. Don't listen to those rumors. Although he pretended to be calm, his fingers unconsciously exerted force and clenched the wine glass in his hand. Late at night, I stood on the balcony and watched the light in Derek's study still on. He was frantically trying to fix the company's mess, making phone calls and sending emails, and was so busy that he was exhausted. And I was watching him step by step towards the abyss with cold eyes. The wind blew across my cheeks, bringing a hint of coolness. I whispered softly, "Derek, the door of hell has been opened for you, you can't escape." Every word was filled with the determination of revenge, floating in the night. Chapter 4, Desire Game. Derek slammed the door of the study room shut, and the loud noise startled the birds in the tree outside the window to fly high. I was pruning roses in the garden, and the scissors in my hand paused for a moment, but I couldn't help but smile. Listening to his angry roar in the house, "Waste. You can't even do this." I knew that Marcus's business attack was beginning to work. Derek's company was falling into the abyss step by step, and his emotions were gradually out of control. I cut off a red rose that was in full bloom, and the delicate petals were shining in the sun, but my fingertips were scratched by the thorns, and the bright red blood beads oozed out. Looking at the blood beads, I felt a surge of pleasure in my heart, just like Derek, who looked charming on the outside, but was actually full of hurtful thorns inside, and now he will also suffer the consequences of his own actions. In the evening, the atmosphere at the dinner table was so depressing that it was hard to breathe. Derek had a gloomy face, and the knife and fork in his hand stabbed the steak fiercely, making a harsh sound. The steak on the plate had been stabbed with holes by him and was in a mess. He suddenly stopped, stared at me and asked, "What did Marcus say to you today?" My heart skipped, but my face still maintained an innocent expression. I was stunned for a while before saying, "We didn't say anything. We just met in the cafe and he asked about my recent situation." "Really?" He put down the knife and fork and his fingers tapped the table rhythmically, making a da-da sound. The rhythm was getting faster and faster, as if it was a reflection of his inner self that was gradually losing control. "You have been very strange recently. Did you remember something?" His eyes revealed suspicion and inquiry, like two sharp knives, as if he wanted to see through my disguise. My eyes instantly turned red, tears welled up in them. I pretended to be wronged and scared, stood up and threw myself into his arms, crying, "Derek, why do you doubt me so much? I try hard to remember the past every day, but you..." My cry choked in my throat. I buried my face in his chest, but raised a mocking smile from an angle he couldn't see. He was really fooled by my acting. His expression eased. He put his arms around me, patted my back gently and said with a hint of guilt, "I'm sorry, dear, it's the company's business that makes me too irritable." I took the opportunity to rub against his arms, pretending to seek comfort, and quietly pressed the micro-tracker hidden in my sleeve into the lining of his suit. This was provided by Marcus. With this, his whereabouts were under our control. He was like a prey that was targeted. No matter how hard he struggled, he could not escape from our palm. In the following days, Derek became more and more wary of me, always observing my every move from time to time. But he couldn't completely attack me because of my amnesiac lover setting. And I took advantage of his absence and used the key that Irene secretly copied to open his private safe. As soon as I opened the safe, a pile of documents came into view. In addition to evidence of corruption, there was also a report on his hiring a private detective to monitor me. I flipped through the pages. Contact with Irene? Cut off contact immediately. Suspected of recovering memory. Need to strengthen control. These words were like knives stabbing my heart, but also strengthened my determination to revenge. I took out my mobile phone, took pictures of these evidences one by one and sent them to Marcus. Every time I sent a picture, it was as if I saw Derek was one step closer to his doomsday. One late night, Derek came back drunk. He staggered, exuding a strong smell of alcohol, and his eyes were blurred but dangerous. He staggered into the bedroom, stared at me and suddenly asked, "Tell me, if you regain your memory, will you leave me?" I suppressed my disgust and fear, forced a gentle smile on my face, gently helped him lie down and whispered, "No, how could I leave you?" But he suddenly became crazy and suddenly grabbed my wrist tightly, almost crushing my bones, and said viciously, "If you dare to lie to me, don't even think about living." In the dark, I stared at his twisted sleeping face, my heart full of hatred, but on the surface I still comforted him softly. When his breathing gradually stabilized, I broke free from his hand, took out the spare phone under the pillow and checked the progress sent by Marcus. The media is ready to expose Derek's crimes, and the police have also received anonymous clues. Just waiting for the right time, this revenge drama will usher in a climax. I looked at the screen of my mobile phone, a sneer appeared at the corner of my mouth and silently said in my heart, "Derek, your death is not far away." Before dawn, I stood in front of the window watching the morning star twinkling in the sky. The world outside the window was silent, with only the occasional chirping of insects. I knew that this game of desire was about to end, and the false world that Derek had carefully constructed was about to collapse in front of him. And I would stand on the ruins, watching him fall into the endless abyss and pay a painful price for the crime he had committed against me. Chapter 5. Storm of Public Opinion. On Tuesday morning, the sun had just shone through the gap in the curtains into the room, and a violent banging on the door suddenly broke the calm. I was still lying in bed and I heard a majestic shout from downstairs in a daze. "Derek Holt, we are the police. We have received a report of suspected commercial crime. Please cooperate with the investigation." This voice instantly sobered me up. I sat up, my heartbeat accelerated, and I was nervous and expectant, knowing that this moment had finally come. Then I heard Derek's panicked footsteps. He hurried downstairs shouting, "What's going on? It must be a mistake." I quickly got up, tidied myself up, quietly walked to the stairs and hid in the shadows to observe. The leading police officer showed his ID card seriously. Derek's face turned pale as paper the moment he saw the ID card. He staggered back a few steps, lost his balance and knocked over the vase at the entrance. With a crash, the vase shattered, just like his world that was about to break apart. "What's going on?" He roared at me angrily, his eyes bloodshot, like a beast that was trapped and fighting after being injured. But I just looked at him innocently with horror in my eyes and said nothing. He couldn't find the answer in my eyes, so he could only wave his arms angrily, trying to defend himself. The police poured into each room in an orderly manner, and the study, safe and computer were checked one by one. They skillfully searched for evidence, and every action seemed to add a heavy yoke to Derek's fate. I hid in the corner watching all this with mixed feelings in my heart. At this time I saw that the media reporters arranged by Marcus had already been waiting outside the door. They were carrying cameras and holding microphones, with excitement and expectation in their eyes, ready to broadcast this big drama live to the whole city. Derek Holt, domestic violence, corruption, commercial fraud. The excited voice of the reporter was transmitted to all directions through the camera. On social media, the topic #Derek Holt's true face hashtag quickly topped the list. I secretly took out my spare mobile phone and refreshed the page with trembling fingers. The domestic violence videos and photos of injuries that Derek had deleted were now spreading wildly with tens of millions of reposts. Each repost was like a sharp sword piercing Derek's heart. You did it. Derek suddenly rushed towards me like crazy, his face twisted beyond recognition, full of anger and despair. I was prepared and flexibly dodged sideways. He missed and almost fell to the ground. Seeing this, the police immediately rushed forward and restrained him. Officer, he has always been violent and I have evidence here. I took out the USB drive I had prepared long ago, and my voice trembled slightly as if I was afraid, and as if the grievances suppressed for many years were finally released. Inside is the video of him beating me and the accounts of corruption. Derek's eyes widened, looking at me in disbelief as if he had just met me for the first time. You have recovered your memory a long time ago. His voice was full of shock and anger, and he seemed unable to accept the fact that I had calculated against him. I sneered and looked at him without a trace of pity in my eyes. Yes, from the moment I woke up after the car accident, I was waiting to send you to prison. I remember every day of your torture to me over the years, and today is your retribution. He struggled frantically, cursing, "You bitch. I'm so good to you." Good. I interrupted him angrily, my voice raised 8 degrees. Are you imprisoning me like a prisoner or using your fists to make me obedient? Derek, you should have thought that this day would come. You thought you could control everything, but you were wrong. Your greed and violence eventually pushed you into the abyss. The flash of the media kept flashing, illuminating the whole room as bright as day. When Derek was taken to the police car, I raised my wrist to the camera, and the old injury there was clearly visible. I said loudly, I hope that all those who suffer from domestic violence can resist bravely. Don't be afraid, the darkness will eventually pass and justice will surely come. My voice was firm and powerful, and it was transmitted to the distance through the camera. The crowd burst into warm applause. Irene squeezed through the crowd, rushed to my side and hugged me tightly. You did it, you are finally free. That night, the night view of the city was still bright, neon lights flashing and traffic was busy. I sat in the apartment arranged by Marcus, watching the news of Derek's bankruptcy in the news. There was no joy in my heart, only endless fatigue and relief. The mansions, luxury cars, and wealth that once existed have all become a thing of the past. I finally tore off his hypocritical mask and let everyone see his ugly face. This journey was full of hardships and dangers, but I never gave up. Now everything is over and I can finally start a new life. Chapter 6. Final Confrontation. On the evening of 3 days after Derek was imprisoned, the afterglow of the setting sun dyed the entire city orange-red, looking peaceful and tranquil. I was sitting by the window flipping through a book on psychological reconstruction, trying to completely get myself out of the haze of the past. At this moment the doorbell rang suddenly. I opened the door and saw only an envelope on the ground and there was no one around. I picked up the envelope cautiously, opened it, and a photo slipped out, and my heart sank suddenly. In the photo, Irene was tied to a rusty pillar, her face had obvious scars, and her eyes were full of fear and helplessness. There was also a note in the envelope which read, "If you want to see your best friend, come to the abandoned dock. Come alone, otherwise she will die." I tightly grasped the letter. The blue veins on the back of my hand bulged because of the force, and anger and worry intertwined in my heart. Almost at the same time Marcus called in, "It's Derek's men, they are desperate. I have arranged for the police to ambush nearby, but you must be careful." "I'll go." I gritted my teeth and said, "This is the final showdown, I want to end it all." The abandoned dock was filled with a damp and rotten smell, and the sea breeze blew, rolling up the garbage and dust on the ground. I walked into the warehouse carefully, taking every step slowly and firmly, and my eyes scanned the surroundings vigilantly. "Let her go." I shouted loudly into the darkness, and the sound echoed in the empty warehouse. A gloomy laugh came and Derek walked out of the shadows slowly. He was much thinner, his cheeks were sunken, but his eyes were full of madness and paranoia, and he was holding a whip in his hand. The metal buckle on the whip flashed coldly in the dim light. "Baby, long time no see." His voice was hoarse like a demon from hell. "Do you think this will work?" I stared at him without any fear in my eyes. "You have nothing now, and surrendering to the law is your only way out." He suddenly became furious, waving a whip and rushing towards me. The whip hit my feet with a whistling sound, and a cloud of dust instantly rose from the ground. "It's all you. You destroyed everything for me. I used to have wealth and status, but now it's all gone. I want you to pay the price." I didn't retreat but rushed towards him and said loudly, "Yes, it's me. From the moment you hit me for the first time, I swore to make you pay a painful price for what you did. You thought you could restrain me with violence and control, but you were wrong." As I said that, I took out my mobile phone and pressed the play button. Derek's crazy roar came from it. "She must belong to me only, and I will beat her until she obeys." This was extracted from the recording of his diary. Every word was ironclad evidence of his crime. Hearing the voice, he waved the whip more crazily like an enraged beast and rushed towards me regardless of everything. At this moment, sirens sounded outside the warehouse, coming from far away. "Do you think you are the only one who can lay out the plan?" I sneered. "From the moment you kidnapped Irene, you fell into the last trap. The police have received the news long ago and are waiting for you to show up." The door of the warehouse was slammed open and the dazzling light instantly shot in. Derek wanted to make a final resistance. He waved his whip and tried to break through the police's encirclement. But the police were well trained and rushed forward quickly and pressed him to the ground. I walked quickly to Irene and untied the ropes on her body with trembling hands. "Are you okay?" I supported her, my voice full of concern. Irene shook her head weakly, tears in her eyes. "I knew you would come to save me." I turned to look at Derek, who was pressed to the ground by the police, his face full of unwillingness and anger. I walked up to him and looked down at him. "Now you can no longer hurt anyone. Your greed, violence and desire for control have sent you into an abyss of no return." Derek glared at me fiercely, cursing non-stop, but his voice was drowned out by the police's scolding. As the sun set, Irene and I sat by the dock and the sea breeze blew our hair. Looking at the sparkling sea, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. The phone rang and it was Marcus calling. "Derek's verdict has come down and he will pay a heavy price for his crimes." "Enough." I looked at the sea and said softly, "This is his end and it is also my new life." After hanging up the phone, I took a deep breath, feeling the breeze blowing and the haze in my heart finally dissipated completely. Chapter 7. Dawn and New Life. One morning 3 months later, the sun shone through the blinds of the psychological counseling room, casting soft light bands, adding a bit of warmth to this quiet space. I sat on a comfortable sofa, holding a cup of steaming coffee in my hand. The psychologist opposite me was smiling at me, his eyes full of concern and encouragement. "How do you feel recently? Do you still have nightmares?" The doctor asked gently, tapping the pen in his hand on the notebook, waiting for my answer. I shook my head gently and the corners of my mouth unconsciously rose, revealing a relieved smile. "Very rarely, doctor. Now more often I am looking forward to the future and thinking about how to spend the next few days." When I said these words, my tone was relaxed and calm, as if the painful experiences in the past had been completely left behind. As I was talking, the door of the psychological counseling room was gently pushed open, and Irene's cheerful voice came in. "Hey, busy man, are you ready for a new life?" She waved 2 plane tickets in her hand with a bright smile on her face. That smile was very contagious, making the whole room bright. I stood up, greeted her, took the ticket and took a look. It showed the flight information to a coastal city. "Are you really going?" I asked with some excitement and some disbelief. "Of course." Irene grabbed my hand and said, "We have agreed that when everything is over, we will start a new journey." The moment the plane soared into the sky, I looked out the window at the city that was gradually getting smaller, and I felt a lot of emotions in my heart. Once this city was a cage full of painful memories for me. Every street and every corner carried the memory of my torture by Derek. But now, as the plane flies higher and higher, those pains are like the city under my feet and I have left them far behind. The day I arrived in the new city, the sun was shining and the sea breeze was blowing gently. Marcus' message came at the right time. "You are welcome to join the new job at any time. With your ability, you will definitely do a great job." I looked at this message and a warm current surged in my heart. Marcus helped me a lot in the process of revenge and now he has provided me with a chance to start over. I replied with a sentence, "Thank you, I will consider it," and put away my phone. At this moment I want to enjoy this rare tranquility and freedom. "Let's go see the sea first." Aaron pulled me and walked towards the seaside impatiently. After a while we arrived at the beach. The fine sand slid through the gaps between my toes, itchy but also made people feel extremely comfortable. I took a deep breath and the air was filled with the unique salty smell of the sea, which was the smell of freedom. I took out the last old photo from my pocket, which was a photo of Derek and I before the car accident. We seemed sweet and happy in the photo, but only I know how much pain and helplessness are hidden behind that smile. How fake the smile was then, how ironic it is now. With a hiss, I tore the photo in half with force, and the sea breeze seemed to have sensed my intentions and immediately rolled the fragments into the sea. Watching the fragments of the photo gradually disappear in the waves, I seemed to see that my past self was buried with them on the seabed. I will be very happy in the future. Aaron came to my side at some point, handed me an ice cream and said with a smile, "The sun shines on the ice cream, reflecting colorful light, just like the new life we are about to start, full of hope and beauty." My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a greeting message from my new neighbor. I replied with a smile, and the screen reflected a relaxed expression I had never had before. In this strange and vibrant city, I have begun to make new friends and integrate into a new life. As night fell, we walked into a cozy little restaurant. The restaurant was bustling with people. The waiter came up to us enthusiastically and recommended special dishes to us. The cheerful laughter of children came from the next table, and that innocent laughter filled my heart with warmth. Irene suddenly sighed with emotion. "Look, this is what life should be like. There is no fear, no violence, only simple happiness." I nodded, raised the juice in my hand and said to Irene, "Cheers to the new life." The two glasses of juice collided gently, making a crisp sound, like the opening bell of a new life. Outside the window, the lights of the city lit up one after another, and the lights were like countless sparks of hope, illuminating our way forward. I know that the time destroyed by Derek has long been reborn in the flames of revenge. Now, with courage and new life, I can finally embrace the future that truly belongs to me without any burden. At this new starting point, I will rewrite my own chapter of life. Let the pain of the past become the driving force to motivate me to move forward and pursue the beauty that I once forgot.